What is up? And thank you for tuning in to the Life Unlimited podcast channel, wherever you're tuning in. So today I wanted to talk about eliminating self-sabotage. Now, we're just finishing up a 12-week challenge within our coaching program. And this was a topic that we talked about a couple weeks ago within the 12-week challenge, and it was a fun one to discuss. And so I thought I would bring some insights to all of you. So self-sabotage is something that I think we all struggle with to some degree or another, right? But after working with multiple men and women, in over a decade of helping them, I've come to realize that, at least in my opinion, there's 3 different types of self-sabotage that tend to throw us off track, okay? And the 3 different types are habitual, emotional, and then there's like internal subconscious stuff too, okay? And I think most of us deal with most, if not all of them, at some point or another when we're trying to change our lifestyle or when we're going through a period of self-growth, okay? So habitual, so let's talk about habitual first, right? So if you haven't read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, I'd highly recommend it. But he dives deep into how not only to set new habits, but how to break bad ones. And then he helps the reader recognize that part of the reason we continue to fail at things is not because we aren't trying. It's actually because we're like fighting against our natural like brain chemistry power, whatever, and even like just our natural human nature when trying to change our lifestyle or eliminate bad habits from our lives. And he gives a ton of good advice about how to make habits easier to start and then easier to maintain based on what we as humans will naturally adhere to, okay? And so when it comes to habitual self-sabotage, what's throwing us off is more just a bad habit we have to break, okay? So it's not something emotionally charged, and you could argue that it's slightly subconscious, but it's mostly just recognizing what it is that we have created as a habit and then making it more difficult, unattractive, or even just, replacing it altogether, okay? So for instance, I have a terrible habit while I watch TV, because as soon as it's like I want to eat while I watch TV. It's like as soon as I sit down to turn on a show, I immediately feel the need to grab a snack. I'm not really hungry. It's just that for some reason, non-consciously, as James Clear calls it in the book, I feel like TV and food go together, okay? So this self-sabotaging behavior is just a bad habit. It's something I can change by just making a few shifts, okay? So like maybe I could color or paint while I watch TV. Maybe I could do some stretching. But ultimately, though, I just need to replace the current habit or make it harder, make it more unattractive, or just replace it, like I said, but with a more productive activity so that when the TV turns on, I'm automatically drawn to doing that instead of grabbing a snack, right? So that's number 1, is if it's habitual, then you either need to make it unattractive, you need to replace it, or you need to make it more difficult to do that thing, okay? The second type of self-sabotage that I've seen is emotional, okay? So if your self-sabotaging behavior is emotionally charged, then what you need to do is slow down, okay? So if it's caused by anxiety, stress, feeling out of control, you need to slow down your response time to the stimulus, okay? So everything in life really can be broken down into stimulus, response, outcome, okay? So if you're feeling anxiety, that would be a stimulus. You binge eat, that's your response. And then the outcome is you gain weight or you feel like crap, right? That's it. But if you can take the time to recognize that you are stressed, and then instead of immediately responding, slow down and talk yourself through how you would like to choose to respond, right? Then that's how you could make it more productive or be more productive and eliminate, or at least, hinder, I guess would be the word, this response. self-sabotaging behavior. Okay. So it kind of reminds me of when you're a kid and they talk to you about choosing to say no to drugs now. And like they play out the scenario where you're at a party and some friends are offering you drugs and you say no, right? And essentially they'd say that if you decide to say no today, then you'll never do the drugs because you decided that you were just going to say no. It was programmed in. The decision had been made prior, like how you were going to respond before the stimulus had ever been presented, right? And so if you struggle with this type of self-sabotage, and I would argue that most people do to some degree or another, then slow things down. Take time to recognize the trigger and choose how to respond before the situation has presented itself. Okay, especially if it's a pattern. So if you binge eat on the weekends, I mean, that could be habitual. So is it habitual or is it emotional, right? Is it something that happens every weekend to make it happen? Or is it just a bad habit, right? And if you binge eat every time you're stressed, what could you do instead, right? How could you choose to respond differently? Could you go to the park, let the kids run around, breathe, get some fresh air, give yourself space to feel the emotion and then choose to respond differently, okay? Choose to respond in a more productive way. And then the third self-sabotaging cause of self-sabotage, I guess I should say, right, is subconscious or internal, right? And another really good book that I tell everybody to read is called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, I believe. And in that book, the author talks about how sometimes we upper limit ourselves. That's what she calls it. And so not consciously, but subconsciously for lots of different reasons. Okay. And it's something to explore if you've been stuck at a certain weight, stuck at a certain, if you're in business, certain revenue level, if you just feel stuck, okay, for any reason. And if you've been there for a long time, especially if you hit this point and then you seem to always lose or like stagnate. Okay. Sometimes it's things that we have buried or beliefs that we have ingrained in ourselves, internal, like subconsciously, and they're holding us back. For example, a few years back, I had a client that lost weight really easily right at the beginning. She dropped like 25, 30 pounds. And then she just stuck there for like 3 or 4 months until she started to slowly gain it back. And I talked to her about it and asked, is there a reason that you don't want to lose weight? Is there a reason you don't want to lose this weight? And consciously, she wanted to lose 30 more pounds. And that was her reply. I want to lose 30 more pounds. And I said, I understand that you do, but something is keeping you from doing it because you did the work and lost 30 pounds already. So I want to know what changed. What are you afraid of? And she sat there for a second, and then she realized that she had taken on the identity of the overweight fun girl, okay? And that was something in her identity that she was afraid of changing. She thought that she would lose the fun part if she lost the weight for some reason. And one example that I've experienced is, like, I've been, growing this business for a while. And I've always had this goal to hit like a certain level, and I felt like I was just getting blocked, like something was keeping me from hitting a certain point, right? And I finally sat down with an energy coach, actually, and we figured out that I was afraid of being too successful, which I know is also a common thing with people, right? And so if I was too successful, and it came from, if I was too successful in the past, like when I was a kid, then I was making my other siblings feel bad because they weren't as successful as me. Okay, so that was a belief that like 15-year-old Kayla had still in here that I'm still letting go of, right? I would not shine my light so that they didn't feel blinded. Does that make sense? And so in conclusion, I mean, quick video podcast today, but so when you're looking at your self-sabotaging behaviors, a good place to start is exploring where they stem from. Okay, so are they habitual? Are they emotionally charged? Or is it something a little deeper? And is it a belief that you need to let go of in order to really make a change? Okay, so a few things I've noticed coaching men and women for the last 10 years. It usually comes down to one of these three things, if not more than one. And it's just breaking through the habits, or slowing down when you're emotionally charged, or digging deep and finding what beliefs you have that you need to let go of. So hopefully this was valuable, and I will catch you all later.